we actually set prerequisites as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that often happens in competitions, and we've seen this in a few competitions in Asia already this year, is the tests that are programmed are not appropriate for the people in that division doing the tests.
Yeah.
And so when we say not appropriate, what does that actually mean? It could be like the skill is just too high for the ability levels of the people in the tests, or maybe the loads are too heavy, or the volume is just inappropriate. So what ends up happening is that people are just on the floor,
nothing happens,
not able to do anything. And whilst, that's not very fun for the athlete, yes, it's great. Someone hits their first muscle up. That's awesome. But, when they're stood under the rings for 15 minutes, not being able to do anything, it's not necessarily the most fun thing for the athlete. And it's not the most fun thing for the audience, who are engaging in it. And the volunteers and the judges. So, to stop that happening, we suggested that we set prerequisites for each division. So each division has to be able to do a minimum of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And what that means is if we programmed X, Y, and Z in the competition, we would have confidence that everyone would be able to do the test and, get the intended...
excel at it,
Yeah, excel at it and get the intended response, So if we wanted it to be, a hard aerobic test, and it had certain movements in it, people would need to be able to do those movements proficiently, so it's actually an aerobic test.
Yeah, for sure. I think also, as well as the athletes, maybe not enjoying it because they're just not doing anything, they can't progress through the workout, or the spectators just think it's boring. It's also, it makes the sport look crap. And at the end of the day, like AC said that he wants to promote health, fitness, being able to do cool things with their bodies through, the open, scaled, all the way up to masters. And I think... yeah, when, it often happens in maybe like the scaled divisions when people kind of get bottlenecked and just can't move. Like that doesn't draw people who might be passing by or might have just been dragged down by a friend to come and watch it. Doesn't really inspire them to do much. You want to see people crushing it. You want to see like people loving what they're doing out there versus looking dejected, not moving. So yeah, I think that's a super important point of any competition. And of course, again, it depends on what the goal of the comp is. If it's a CrossFit Games and you can't clean and jerk 315, then well, unfortunately not the fittest on earth. But if it's Cebu Throwdown, the goals are slightly different, the priorities are different. So yeah.
Something we also spoke about with the organizers was like how important is entertainment value. And I think this is something I think about a lot when it comes to programming in CrossFit, is that there's a difference sometimes between programming something that's genuinely a really good test and programming something that might not be as good a test, but is exciting and entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to, like spectator events like the CrossFit Games or like the Cebu Throwdown, I think it's important that you've got to think about that as well. If we're talking about trying to create a really memorable experience, we've got to be thinking about it not just from a competitor standpoint, but the spectators, the fans, the family members, the people who come down to watch, the sponsors, the people who are there as well, who are investing in it, like they want to see something exciting. So that was something we asked, and the middle ground that we all agreed on was that we want the test to still be good. Like it has to be an even balanced test of fitness, but we want to try and make it exciting as well.
Yeah.
And so, what are things that contribute in your eyes, Ant, to like an event being exciting, an event maybe not being so exciting?
Yeah, I think this is something that we definitely had the opportunity to work with because we had a football field. And I think one thing that is really cool in competitions, especially like this one, is when you can provide athletes with a test that they can't normally do. So when you have space like a football field, like you can utilize the entire length of the field if you wanted to. You can have more lanes out there if you wanted to. But in terms of like spectatorship, making it exciting, I think even if you brought a random person off the street and just stuck them in the stands, they need to be able to know what's going on.
Yeah.
They need to be able to, and that comes down to the organizers getting the athletes to tell the story as it happens. So if they're in round one, there's something that clearly dictates that they're in round one, or they're at a certain position on the field, or a certain position on the floor, or a certain point in the rig, or a certain barbell, whatever it might be, which shows where they're at. And they can basically progress on through the workout. I think that's really important. I think actually just clear viewership. A lot of the time you can look at a competition for it just looks like chaos. I mean, it looks like chaos, like it's not fun to watch because you don't know what you're trying to watch. So like clear movements with like a very easily understandable movement standard makes it more enjoyable. Yes, like, it is cool sometimes when like a random movement gets thrown in and athletes just got to figure it out on the fly. But more often than not, it's better when people can just do all the movements and like move fast through it. And I think that's another thing is like speed. I think, you look at the Olympics, what's the most viewed event at the Olympics? It's generally speaking the 100 and 200 meter sprint. And like people love to see like raw power, raw speed, raw strength. So, those are events that you want to try and throw into the mix and get people to be close as possible.